Good morning, everybody. I am Valeria Passetti. I'm the Vice President Membership. And today I'm going to introduce this month Chapter Chat, focusing on women in architecture in Singapore. By way of introduction, the RIBA has been organising a series of women in architecture events, both in the UK and internationally. The China chapter, for example, have introduced an online platform that connects female architects in China and globally, sharing their stories and celebrating their success. More can be found in the link that Chloe Sadler, our coordinator, is going to put in the chat. We also had a chapter chat to showcase women in architecture to celebrate International Women's Day in March, a chance to recognise the incredible contribution of women. For this session of the RIBA Chapter Chats, we have a special feature on women working in the industry in Singapore. And I'm delighted to introduce a panel of 5 leading architects who will share their journey and experience of working in architecture, how they made their mark in the industry, their successes, their challenges of progressing through their careers, and how they encourage aspiring female architects to succeed in the world of architecture. We have got an incredible panel today. I will introduce each speaker individually, but just by way of a general introduction, we've got Fiona Dixon from Studio NVS, Shaumyika Sharma, Studio Shaumyika Sharma, Rita So, RDC Architects Pte Ltd, Tsuki Vun, WSP Consultancy Pte Ltd, and Maria Wong, Wong Design and WOW Architects, or WOW Architects. So please let me pass the microphone to Fiona Dixon from Studio NVS. Over to you, Fiona.
Everyone can see that slide, I'm assuming. I can't see anything now except my slide, so do forgive me.
Yeah, that looks great, Fiona.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, I'm Fiona Nixon. I'm a Singapore, Australia and APEC registered architect. I've been in Singapore on and off for about approaching 20 years. So thinking about it, I probably spent more of my career now in Singapore than I have in Australia. So today, thinking about the journey of becoming and being an architect internationally, I'm really just going to go through like a timeline of my career and the 3 parallel tracks of my journey as an architect, learning how I studied to be an architect and how I continue to pick up new skills, serving, which is about teaching, writing and being involved in various institutes, and working, so how I've worked for myself and other people in the industry. So I've been working for 32 years now, and as I was preparing this today, I looked back through some of the projects I've worked on, counted them up, and 165 so far that have involved some kind of design input into the project. So that sounded like a lot at first. I was pretty impressed with myself, but actually that's only 5 a year, which makes me wonder what I'm doing with all that extra time, probably writing pictures or doing Excel spreadsheets. So I started in 1986 in Melbourne, and I think the idea of journey is particularly relevant to me because as a teenager, we moved around a lot, and I guess I got used to moving from place to place and get itchy feet, love travelling. So that's really sculpted my career. RMIT at the time had a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture degree, and we were strongly encouraged to start working while we were studying. Very highly engaged with industry there, which was a great start. The culture was very, very strong. So after the second year, I started teaching at RMIT as well. We were the first cohort that learnt CAD. I learnt an AutoCAD version 9, I think, and still do it today. Still use the same commands. That offset command is invaluable. But that was a real help for boosting my career, knowing CAD, because it was really starting in the industry, and it meant that never really had to go through that unpaid intern stage. I could get a job that paid, you know, not quite a living wage. I had to give up my job working in a supermarket and earn less, but I could work almost immediately in an architecture firm and be useful. So my first job in middle of third year was at Woodmarsh. And digging around, I found this photo of Roger in the red jumper there, Randall, and a bunch of my colleagues when we went out on a road trip around the city of Melbourne, looking at various projects that were under construction or newly built. And what was amazing about this time at RMIT and this cohort was how successful everyone went on to become. So something about how Roger and Randall were running the practice, giving people opportunities, introducing them to other people in their network, really gave a boost. So Stephen Javins there is now the head of architecture at Kerryfield and Design Office. Alex Lawler is the head of Urban Futures for Architectus. She used to be head of campus development at Melbourne University. Amanda Ritson, who was an artist and one of our receptionists, went on to run John Wardle's office, and her sister Sarah Ritson is an independent art consultant. So everyone went on from this kind of beginning where we were drawing with pencils on tracing paper in the Woodmarsh office and learning to make a proper coffee from the plunger. We developed into having these amazing careers in different sectors. So I worked on a lot of house projects there, so it's really good. You get a whole house to do by yourself. In those days, we didn't have so many stages of work. We were essentially concept design didn't exist. It was schematic design. Roger's dad, Ken, would make a model, and we would measure this tiny model and go pretty much straight to documentation. It was kind of no development. But I worked on 3 or 4 houses there, and the one that I ran pretty much by myself was called the Bowness House for Bill Bowness, who's quite a well-known Melbourne art collector. It was out in the suburbs next to this strip of land where the power pylons went through from Gippsland, where all the coal-fired power stations are. And interestingly enough, the last 2 years, or the 2 years of high school I spent living in Melbourne was just, you know, a couple of hundred metres up this strip of land, so I knew the area very well. So after Woodmarsh, so we were getting to the late 90s. This was the period when Lee Kuan Yew described Australia as being at risk of becoming the white trash of Asia. And we had Paul Keating come in and had the recession, the last recession Australia had before COVID, which he described as the recession that Australia had to have. In the meantime, I'd won a scholarship from RMIT as a travelling scholarship, and I went around Europe for 3 months, and then I studied at University of East London for a semester. And that was also really formative for me. I made friends then that I still have today, friends in Hong Kong I catch up with whenever I can, not so often these days. So just building networks of people in different places was really important. Then after that, so, you know, I was overseas when the recession was on. I didn't really have to work for that period anyway, but coming back into the depths of the recession, I was lucky to go back to work for Woodmarsh. They had no work on really, so I had to pivot into doing office administration, which is also super useful. Like, that's where I learned how to use Excel, which has served me well throughout my career, and learned how to do the invoicing and the bookkeeping and all the things that are actually essential when you need to run your own practice. After I finished a thesis and graduated, I worked for a firm. It wasn't officially called Lyons, it was called Lyon Hilbert, but it was the precursor practice to what is these days called Lyons. So we had Corbett Lyon, Cameron Lyon were the directors there. So that was also a great place to learn and start working. I better hurry up, I've got 5 minutes. From there, after I registered, when I was just before I turned 25, I went to Denton Marshall. People in Singapore probably know DCM. They're building a Guoco land project down at Midtown at the moment. Worked on the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. They just won this in competition, so I was put in charge of the team running the microstation documentation for this. So I had to model the whole thing in 3D, including this complicated bit where it merged with the old museum, or what had been a museum. And then when I finished design development on that, I was on the competition team for the Melbourne Museum. We won the competition, and then I led the team that was doing all of the kind of connective bits. So all of this external framing, these entry canopies, the interface with the exhibition buildings, and this part, which was called the Gallery of Life. And that was interesting too, because it did sort of set me up with another sub-specialisation, which is animal projects. There were live animals in that, and those animal projects have kept coming back to me throughout my career, including today. But these projects are not big enough for me. You know, I wanted to work on sort of city scale things. I had a friend who was up in Singapore working, and he hooked me up with Kerry Hill Architects. So in 1995, I came to Singapore the first time. Great time at KHA. I mean, Singapore back then was pretty interesting. Couldn't get a proper coffee. We did a lot of feasibility work for Adrian Zecker for Aman Resorts. I probably did 8 or 10 different projects for Aman, none of which got built, fully documented as Spa at Amanusa, for example, one of the first KHA projects, best known at the time. But just as the Asian economic crisis was hitting, I got to run this project, Lalu Hotel in Taiwan. So I took this from, you know, empty sheet of paper to design development. But the Asian economic crisis was pretty devastating. Taiwan wasn't affected. This project did go ahead under the capable hands of Angelo Chrysiotis. But, you know, salaries weren't quite as forthcoming as they used to be. And so when I had a call from Woodmarsh in Australia saying, "We won a hotel project, can you come back and run it for us?" I couldn't really say no. So I went back to Woodmarsh and spent 1.5 years there, focused on one project, which was the Mansion Hotel at Werribee. So this is an existing Victorian mansion, which is a tourist attraction, state rose garden, state polo grounds, and we added this new wing to it, refurbished the old wing, which was not Victorian, it was from the 30s, added a destination winery, a pavilion at the polo grounds, and it was also next to Werribee Open Range Zoo, so this kind of animal related thing was kind of coming back again. This is the interior. This project won the RIIA National Awards for Heritage work and for interiors. Then, you know, you have that sort of moment, it's like, is this the right career for me? What else could I possibly do? So I thought I'd go for computer science. I thought, well, that sounds interesting, let's try that. So I enrolled in computer science part-time, a master's, and did it at the same time as working at Woodmarsh. But during that, left Woodmarsh and started my own practice, Minifie Nixon, with Paul Minifie, who's now a professor at RMIT. So we ran that for about 7 years. And of course, although I'd avoided the unpaid internship as a student and a recent graduate, you don't get very well paid running your own business. It's a little bit like the unpaid internship. Clients expect a lot of work for not very much sometimes. So I did a little bit of work on the side. I was a tutor for computer science at RMIT, also in the architecture department, which eventually became a half-time lecturing role there. I also taught design at University of Melbourne and became a chapter counsellor for the RAIA in Victoria. And in that chapter counsellor role also, sorry, I thought I'd give myself a timer, also served on the Architects Registration Board of Victoria as the RAIA rep. So we had a couple of projects here that won awards, the Victorian College of the Arts Centre for Ideas, which is right in the centre of Melbourne. The Australian Wildlife Health Centre, so it came back again. This is a wombat hospital. It treats wombats, koalas and kangaroos. It's out at a branch of the Melbourne Zoo. Kept going right up to 2006. In 2005, I did a leadership program that was run by Melbourne University and ANU, which was connecting back again into Asia. So that was interesting. We prepared a book about Singapore architecture. Actually, my students at RMIT in one of my seminars, who were almost all from Singapore and Malaysia, helped me put this book together, which is still available online with links to famous buildings of the era. picked up a hotel project, the Millennium Hilton Bangkok, parts of it, supporting Bar Studio. It was their first big project. And then bumped into Kerry at a conference in Sydney, and there was another one of those moments, oh, we've won a big project, would you like to come back and run it for us? So I came back in 2006 to work on the University of New South Wales Asia campus. So the competition was already done, it was really starting at schematic design, team through to documentation and tender. This is on the site where SUTD is now. So early works were done, piles were in the ground, the nursery was there, all the trees were growing, but a new Vice-Chancellor came in and cancelled the project. So, I mean, I guess I'm career up to now, campus projects, low-rise buildings, resorts, sort of typologically, there are a few different streams, but formally they were related. I've never worked on a tower, for example. All my projects have been kind of ground scrapers. So quickly pivoting from the University of New South Wales project to a condo in Perth. This won the State Award for Multiple Housing that year. So again, I took this up to design development before handing it over to Patrick in the Perth office to run it through with Mervac, who were doing all the documentation. I put Met Husband up here because that was really the end of me possibly leaving Singapore. So I was in Singapore for good. I jumped ship from Kerry Hill and joined RMJM, where one of my former Kerry Hill colleagues was running the design in the Bangkok office. So I was doing Singapore, she was doing Bangkok. My first meeting with Mark Patterson, who may be on the call, who has been another recurring theme in my career. We did a lot of work in India. The Great Recession hit, another kind of change in the industry. Because of my campus experience, I was in charge of the education sector across Asia. So we had the opportunity to do a competition open, I think there were 4 teams involved. International competition in Suzhou for Dushu Academy. We won that, but the recession hit, just after we'd done the competition. So the project was moved up to Hong Kong to be done. So I commuted to Hong Kong every week for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months to work on it with Itiong, who's probably on the call too, who was the project architect. That's finished now. I don't have any finished pictures though. And then RMJM were in the process of winding up the Singapore office. So I had a chance to go to Hong Kong, but I sort of didn't have a good feeling about it, which was lucky because just after I should have arrived, the main people split off and formed what's now Ten Design. Welcome to Singapore, Ten Design. So I stayed here and I joined Woodhead with the amazing Andrew Carmichael, who's a fantastic business developer. But it was another pivot because, I don't know, it's difficult for international architecture firms to win building work in Singapore sometimes. So I did a lot of corporate interiors. I'm still interested in them. I think the scale of work between resorts, city design and workplaces, actually, there are congruities in how you plan them. You plan them like small cities in a way. DBS headquarters was 18 floors, so it was like planning a city that was layered up 18 times and meshing the functions through the building. We won an airport lounge competition in Mauritius, which is built now. This has won the Indian Ocean Lounge of the Year every year since it was built, and more work in India. Then I had a baby, and of course that affects how you work and how you operate. Woodhead similarly decided that they were going to pull out of Singapore, but before they did, and Andrew had left to go to ACOM, so it wasn't the same without him. So I started Atelier Lim and Tam with Karen Lim, who we'd worked together at Kerry Hill and again at RMJM. So we established that firm. While we waited for the projects to come through, I joined Andrew in a startup called Realis that was about workplace design and build. So we brought our team over from Woodhead. Same people, Sally Chu there in the yellow top, kept popping up. We had a big project for CIG, again, city planning in a workplace context. Bit blurry, but same people coming through, Azrael, Sally, Ramel, Kelly, same team. We keep working with each other again and again. I've worked with Sally 3 times now. Then we had a project for Aman Resorts. Karen had been the project architect on the original hotel when she was at Kerry Hill. So new development of residences, 11 houses on the site of the existing resort. Took it all the way through to design development, added a spa design. And then again, things got a little bit quiet. Teaching at NUS in a design studio by then. All of this time, I was one of the founding members of the Australian Institute of Architects International Committee. I was the chairman for one term. A couple of friends were working at Hassel as equity principals doing interior design and asked me if I'd join them to run the architecture department called Mark Patterson. I'd worked with at RMJ and was there too. So again, how could you say no to an offer like that, to work with your good friends? Hassel for a couple of years. Again, largely workplace interiors of the work that was realised. Had an opportunity to work on a really interesting project competition in Saudi Arabia with Junya Ishigami, doing the space planning and briefing for a $400 million resort. And finished with Arup's office in KL, which again, enormous floor plate and kind of city planning principles applied to a workplace. And then Matt and Paul were leaving, so I decided to leave too and formed a new practice. So purple means my practice, and here with Christian Van Skyke, who I knew from RMIT back in Melbourne, had also worked at Kerry Hill. We've worked together at RMJM. So we've started a firm the beginning of last year, focused at the moment on work in China, resort work in China. We have a partner in Beijing, but also picking up bits and pieces here in Singapore now too. So we've got 4 projects on the go at the moment for a brand owner-operator named Songsam in Yunnan province, in concept design, an extension to their resort in Shangri-La, and one that we just finished design development on, which is in a place called Nujung River, a small boutique hotel, which you can see in the foreground here. So that is my journey. Thank you very much. Hello?
Hi. Thank you, Fiona. That was so interesting. To say that you had a journey is to say the least. Very varied, different part of the world, so very interesting. I'm going to hand over to Shaumyika Sharma now from Studio Shaumyika Sharma. Over to you, Shaumyika.
Thank you. And welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I shall try to share my slides. So I've always been interested in the overlap between architects, artisans and artists. As an architecture student in Australia, I was influenced by the Bauhaus total art approach to architecture, in which many arts and crafts could be incorporated into architecture. Some of you may be familiar with the story of architect Eileen Gray's holiday home on the Côte d'Azur, E1027, which she built for herself and her lover Jean Badovici. Le Corbusier painted murals on the walls of E1027, completely uninvited and apparently also naked. Gray accused him of vandalism. Of course, due to Le Corbusier's fame, the murals are now protected artworks. Fortunately, my own experience of art in relation to architecture has been collaborative and not combative. In my early career in London, I had the opportunity to work in collaboration with an artist and in consultation with the community. Artist Benita Walia, in the top right of this image, etched clouds into the glass in the stair towers of this housing estate in Brixton, London, by Mode 1 architects, pictured bottom left. The community actively participated in the design process, including choosing finishes for the interiors. The bottom right image is of a community consultation session. I also had the chance to create spaces for artists. This was one of the 18 artist studios. I apologize for the graininess of the image. The project was in Hackney. Visiting this artist in their studio, I was reminded of the joy of hand drawing. I had graduated at a time when drawing boards were being completely phased out, and on the top left-hand corner is a hand drawing from my time as a student. After completing my registration in the UK and working on a number of built projects, I wanted to stretch my imagination further and decided to pursue a master's at Columbia University in New York. While there, I expanded my digital and analog toolkit for architectural representation in 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, and 4 dimensions. I started to look for value, consciously look for value in the process of design as well as the product. And this is a picture of Ray Eames with her Polaroid camera. The Eameses used photography as part of their design process as well as a way to record their work. During my time at Columbia, I developed my film and photography skills as modes of design and representation. Living in the Chelsea Arts District of New York after graduating, I recognized that certain forms of representation could be reframed as art. I submitted a concept photograph for my final architecture project to an open call by an arts organization. It was selected for a year-long exhibition and found its way back into the realm of architecture on scaffold hoarding. From this point, I saw art as a serious component of my practice. I applied my wider understanding of representation to a course I developed called Architecture Through a Mixed Media Lens, which I taught at the Cooper Union. The course introduced students to architecture through the lens of media used for architectural representation, from images, or 2 dimensions, to objects, 3 dimensions, to moving images, 4 dimensions. Consulting at the same time for architecture firms, I got to work on very large-scale projects such as the Shanghai Ferry Terminal, while also simultaneously working as a sole practitioner, entering competitions, and working on small projects on my own. This image is of an architecture competition I entered for Garden City typology, comprised of 4 houses on a block, and it was submitted for a Shinken-Chiku competition. While working on this competition, I thought back to a housing project I did during my master's, which you can see in the top left corner. I think it's always important to look back at earlier work. It can reveal a lot about our passions and instincts, and it's quite easy to just disregard it and think it belongs to the past, but I keep going back to it. I had graduated from my master's at Columbia into the global financial crisis in New York in 2008. Recessions tend to disproportionately affect women. I ended up combining income from art, teaching, consulting, and practice. This was challenging, but it made it possible for me to start working independently. And this way of working actually informs how I run my practice today, which combines both services and products. There are many architects who make design products in addition to working on architecture projects. Here's the late Dame Zaha Hadid wearing her own jewelry. I moved to Singapore with a job at an architecture firm, but I slowly segued my way back into independent practice. I make work at a variety of scales, always using skills acquired through architecture. At the very extra small end of the spectrum is jewelry, which I adapted from architectural model making. At the small scale, I've been working on concrete sculptures, which have been selected for an exhibition held every year called Sculpture by the Sea in Australia. I see these as experiments with concrete for larger scale work in the future. I carried out another type of experiment with my own home, working towards the total art ideal of my practice. I combined my own art and product design with a carefully curated selection of textiles and furniture for the interior of this condo inside Zaha Hadid's Dunedin complex. And on my drawing board right now is an architecture project in West Bengal in India, a living museum of artisans. On the left, you see Annie Albers, who was once head of the weaving workshop at the Bauhaus School of Architecture. On the right is a present-day weaver in Maheshwar in India. Following research carried out over many years on the state of handloom weaving in India, I have partnered up with a social entrepreneur and an NGO to build a new facility for women weavers in India. As an undergraduate student, I worked on a textile museum project called the Loom House, which you can see in the top left corner. When we look back on work, we can often find patterns. Walter Gropius once said, "There is no essential difference between the artist and the artisan." I find this quote very useful. And finally, as a way to conclude, I started my presentation with clouds etched in glass by an artist, Benita Walia, and I'm ending with another type of cloud. My most recent built work is a pink pigmented concrete clouds sculpture entitled "Why Is It Pink?", which was exhibited in March of this year. Well, thanks very much. I'll hand it over now to Valeria.
Yes, thank you, Shaumyika.
Thank you.
Live? Thank you, Shaumyika. That was really interesting. The combination about the working of the artist, architect, artisan is an incredibly interesting one. So thank you for your journey into that development. So I'm going to hand over to Rita, Rita So of RDC Architects Pte Ltd. Over to you, Rita.
Thank you, Shaumyika. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's exciting. Richard, can you share my slides? Is it on? Sorry, I couldn't get my slides up on my computer, so Richard has to help me with that. Only about, I think, 10 slides or so. Yep, Richard. Yep, this is just to introduce who I am. The next slide. Next slide. Essentially, I think I was given 10 minutes, so I thought maybe just to share very simply. Next slide, please, Richard. Yeah, I figure 3 points that I like to share. I mean, over the almost 30 years of practice, I thought it may sound cheesy, but I think I leverage a lot on that. Appreciate your difference, love what you do, and hold fast to your dreams. And this has been the guiding principles for me. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, I think really appreciate the difference. Yeah, the fact that make your difference count. I think the idea is that I grew up in the 70s and 80s in Singapore. I think for those of you who are familiar in Singapore, it's a time whereby we absolutely have nothing, not very much. And the journey of growing up is akin to the development of Singapore from third world to first world. We don't have tap water then, and sanitation was very backward. But then, you see the development. I was then a young student. In those days, we are classified either you were a science student, art student. But I decided to do both. Yep. So being different has got its costs. You have to be very stubborn to do what you want to do. And wanted to be an artist, but realized that you can't make a living with as an artist then. Decided to do science. I spent a year doing computer science, but realized that it's not my love, and I switched to architecture. So you could say that I'm an architect by accident. I grew to enjoy the work that I do, and over the decades or so, I think even in Singapore, when I graduated from NUS in 1987, there were only about 14 of us ladies in the class of 650 something. Yeah, so it's a very minority, and essentially male dominated. But I think if you really want to make a difference, I think you really got to appreciate your difference for the young ladies out there. So therefore, you got to take a stand. And what I did in the early days when I honed my skill, I will share the projects later, but I just gone through very simply the journey. I decided that as a young mother, the only way for me to contribute in the work is to really get involved in the use of technology. So I was one of those that moved technology front for the institute as well as for my own company, and therefore digitalization is important. So next slide, please. And because you want to challenge the norm, I think you really have to be prepared to take the bull by the horn. Yeah, I think the slides are a bit cut off, but it doesn't matter. Really, you have to walk the talk in this case. To challenge the norm, prepared to work hard, and be a liver for the younger female architects. So what I did was I decided against all so-called advice from old elderly friends that why do you want to go challenge the norm? I stood for election as the president of the Singapore Institute of Architects, the first woman president. I was elected in office. Overwhelmingly, I was very, very, very happy that I got a lot of support from my members. And that started the journey of not just doing your own work in your office, but be involved in the institute if you want to change the norms, you want to move things. So, and as such, I started the computer committee in the institute, and that's where we moved to start even establish a so-called software development subsidiary in the institute, so that we help generally for the architects to move so that we can use and adopt technology, yeah, as a whole. And also, in order to walk the talk, I reckon that you need, like what Fiona has done, continuous learning, and lifelong learning is as almost like a philosophy that you have adopt. So at age 50, I went to sign up for Masters of Science in Sustainable Green Design, because I wanted to challenge then the green mark criteria that was launched by the government, very much towards the active system, not looking into what passive designs could do. So again, and even the recent years, to be able to embrace and take on this volumetric construction that we're talking about, precast prefab construction, I also did a specialist diploma on that. And essentially to spearhead that learning process, so that the office, my office colleagues could be also encouraged to take on lifelong learning. So that being said, let me just go and get my slides. Next one, Richard. Yeah. So I thought briefly I could just share with you some of my projects that over the last 32 years. The next slide. There are a compilation of projects that I've done through the years. This first project was when I just got my license in 89 or 88, 89. It's 4 hostels of 20 buildings for students, 2,000 students in the Nanyang Technological University. It's on a hill, altogether 20 buildings, and it's and to me at that point in time, it's one of the things that I was very strong about, not to destroy by building tall buildings, instead cascaded along the hills. Every section of the block was not more than 4-story high, so you can see the terracing that I've done. And obviously in the 80s I was very much influenced by Jeffrey Bauer, so this tropical architecture was a reflection of that. I think next slide. Took me 4 years from that project and to this project. It was a sorting center in Singapore that was to be done when it's completed. It was just before the change of the 2000, the year 2000. So it was in a place which is very much to set a benchmark for industrial building look. So it's a sorting center, and it's now converted into corporate office with a shopping mall, which is a subterranean. I think they've added on to that. Just very quickly, just show you that this project took me about 6 to 8 years to complete, and the scale of it occupies 3 football fields. It's challenging, but I think the idea of using technology, using computerization helps a lot. Next slide, please. Yeah, then when I was pursuing my master's, I had this project that was to be done. Is a 30-story building looking across the east coast of Singapore along the highway, and very much interested into cross-ventilated tropical high-rise. This is my first foray into the residential building, and I'm glad to say that even after completion, I've got people who stay there, and they are saying that they don't need to use air conditioning, even though it's been provided. So I'm very much happy to note on that. This is one of the very first that I've pursued in terms of getting environment that is tropical, and also in terms of construction, because of the use of standardization, the contractor could actually build it faster than what was expected of him. Next one, please. Next slide. Yeah, then I went into healthcare for very personal reason, because at that point in time I've got a 95-year-old grandmother who fell ill, and for 2 years after 2 years of journey when she went in and out of hospital. At that point in time, the hospitals were quite cold and Spartan and not quite a place that you liked. And then when she passed on 2 years later, I just felt that as an architect, I could play a role in changing the environment for hospital. This project was actually a remodeling of an existing hospital, main building of National University Hospital. Sorry, I couldn't show you the after effect. It's new insertions that we did. We spent almost 6 years to finish the remodeling process, because the hospital is supposed to be operating, and we are doing bit part by part. But it was a very interesting learning process for me, and to be able to kind of push for the fact that all buildings need not be demolished. If you can save it, why not? And this one also, the next project is, after this project we did, next slide please, Richard. Yes, we did the integrated building at Changi General Hospital. Again, a new model of care at the eastern side of Singapore, the General Hospital. This is to be a different step down care for about 300 beds, and again a very tropical, very what you call it, a building. It's we got platinum for that, for Green Mark. So cross ventilation is one of the key norms for that, and we finished this and we move on to other projects. At this point in time, the next slide please. Richard. Yeah, I then had to do, I took on the restoration of a historical monument. This is in the process of my commitment to really look into our Asian heritage. This is actually was built 150 years ago, a French Gothic church, French Gothic style, but over the years as it was built, the parishioners which were then migrants from India and from China actually has integrated the traditional motifs in it. So it's quite an exciting process to rediscover the things that was buried over layers of plaster and alteration. So we got an award for this, both URA as well as I award, as well as Acacia award. And I think just to illustrate my point of the journey as an architect, it's many faceted, and there are many areas that we could do. In many ways, I think contribution to the societies is equally important, and this is one of those that you want to push and said, to me, it's important with regards to now the sustainability drive. Not every building needs to come down if we can find new use for it. And this, fortunately for us, Singapore has quite a strong program for conservation and restoration of older buildings, and this will continue. At the moment, I'm still doing at least for 3 more restoration projects for old buildings, and I think that's about. Is there a next slide, Richard? I think that's the last one. I think I just like to close on the fact that much as we have in our work, the journey, I always believe that you need to hold fast to your dreams, because if you think of, I mean, looking back, connecting the dots. I have got 32 years of experience, and I realized that one critical thing that helped to kind of steer you on your journey is the dreams that you had when you were much younger. And even at this stage, when we are looking back and you realize that, hey, I'm glad I hold fast to some of my dreams, and maybe some are still not realized, but the idea is that we do not give up. I think we need to persevere. And perhaps that set an example for some of the younger ones who are going through difficult times. Yeah, I think COVID now it's quite a frightening episode now. I mean, I've lost a friend over the weekend, the president of the United Architects of Philippines, who had caught COVID and passed on. So again, it's a very fragile environment that we are living now, and if we could do the best we can, and hopefully, plant seeds for the future, and so that we can encourage our younger generation, especially the younger women architects that it is not difficult, but it's not easy though. So hold fast to your dreams. And on that note, I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much. I completed my slides. 10 minutes, I hope. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Rita. I'm so sorry for your loss, and you're right. So many of us had lost people to this horrendous pandemic. So my heart goes out to you and the loss of your friends. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for taking us through your journey, an incredibly interesting one. And I think this is the trait of today's conversation. All our speakers have got such interesting and different, diverse approach to architecture, and but the final aim for all of you so far has been following your dreams, you know, and even in the face of adversity, just reinvent yourself and move on, and still continue to follow the dream that you had when you were young. So thank you so much, Rita. I'm going to hand over now to Sookyieh Vun, is from WSP Consultancy Pte Ltd. So over to you, Tsuki.
Hi. Hi. Thank you. Let me upload my slide. Right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
great.
right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Sookyieh, Principal, Head of Project Management in WSP Singapore. So let me tell you a little bit of my journey to get here. My father was in the construction industry back at home in Malaysia. So pursuing a career in architecture is not something foreign to me. So while at school, I enjoy art. I like expressing my creativity on a blank piece of canvas. It did not immediately occur to me that I ought to become an architect, but in my growing years, I came to know about architecture from my siblings, who have friends studying architecture in university. This piqued my interest in the subject, and the rest is history. I am fond of modern architecture with simplicity and clarity of forms. Mies van der Rohe is always the first modernist architect came into my mind for his minimalist style, less is more, with the use of modern materials, steel and glass, and the minimum structural framework to create free flowing of open spaces. Next slide. So when I was practicing architecture full-time, I was inspired by Richard Meyer's work for his smart play of geometry and white against natural setting and background. The Museum of Applied Arts in Frankfurt was the first of his buildings I visited during my early university field trip. I particularly like the use of overlay geometries to create spaces. Facade claddings and windows are proportionally scaled to blend into the urban surrounding. I believe that architecture is a gentle, neutral profession. It is a career driven by passion and deep appreciation for the betterment of the built environment we lived in. Just as each of us are unique beings, as architects, we draw on our personal design ethos and distinct experience to create spaces for the future. So here's my journey. I did my architecture training with the Welsh School of Architecture in Cardiff, South Wales, in UK. During my part 1 year out practical years, I worked on a number of hospital projects and even stationed on site in 1996 during constructions of the Royal Glamorgan Hospital in South Wales. I work alongside the project architects, QS, engineers and site staff, resolving site issues together with the contractors. At the time, I observed the increasing importance of management skills to architects and how their management role is being taken by the appointment of project manager, who are mostly from other professions. So to pursue this further, I conducted a study in my final year architectural dissertation on the additional skills, training, and qualifications required for architects to be project managers. So my architecture career started in Cardiff. The Millennium Stadium in Cardiff was the first major project I worked on after graduated from the university. The project was fitting out of the stadium external riverwalk and the interior hospitality suite and all the catering areas in preparations for the 1999 Rugby World Cup. Since then, I have had an interest in Welsh international rugby, and I obtained my RIBA Part 3 in year 2000. When practicing architecture in the UK, some of my major projects I have worked on included the Riverfront Arts Centre in South Wales and remodelling of a redundant nuclear power station at Snowdonia National Park in North Wales. The St Asaph Optoelectronic Building in North Wales is a flagship building for the high-tech industry. It has a wall of integrated PV panels and a mini power stations, and the building achieved BREEAM Excellent Sustainability Rating in 2004. So my interest in holistic end-to-end view of projects eventually led me to pursue a career in project management. So I took an MBA course and diploma in project management on part-time basis in year 2000 in order to equip me with the necessary business and management skills and knowledge to take on the demanding architect's role in the construction industry. My architecture journey has given me a foundation to venture into a new career opportunity. I gained my first project management experience working as an employees agent for various London-based housing associations, managing a number of government-funded extra care housing for the older people and special needs when I was working for PRP Architects in London. I moved back to Asia about 11 years ago and took an opportunity in Singapore. So when working with Arcadis Project Management, I was the lead project manager, managing the multiple consultant teams and the requirements of multiple key stakeholders for the Center for Oral Health and Utility Building at the National University Hospital in Singapore. My involvement from early design stage to completions and handover has given me a complete view of the whole project cycle. With my 2 years of experience in the construction industry, in Singapore and UK, I have led the delivery of project management services to new build, A&A, and fit-out projects for private and public sector clients. So I joined WSP Singapore in 2019, and I have established a regional network for driving business development opportunities in industrial and data center sectors. I am currently leading a multidisciplinary team, providing architectural, CNS, and M&E building services design and permitting services to deliver the integrated waste management facility at Tuas Nexus in Singapore. Next one. Yeah. So reflecting my personal journey, from practicing architecture to managing projects, I believe I am in a position where I want to be now. I enjoy seeing projects through my entire life, to the entire life cycle, from beginning to the end, and being able to provide the added value to clients through my training and experience in architecture. My career has largely been a journey of growth, transitioning from architecture to project management. My architecture training provided me the foundation to discover and then leverage on my strengths to deliver high quality projects to my clients. Throughout the course of my career, I have worked in the capacity as a client's representative and as a project manager, overseeing design consultants and contractors, leading teams to deliver projects of varying scales and complexities. Each of these experiences have shaped my perspective and contributed to my growth as a professional in the building and construction industry. When I first made the transition from architecture into project management, there was a lot to learn, from understanding the business to financial aspects of a project to adapting different work cultures. Over the years, I learned to constantly adapt quickly to new cultures, whether in a country or in the workplace. I have always believed that collaborations, openness, and support for one another, regardless of genders, are very important. I have been very blessed to be able to work and learn alongside fellow professionals in a supportive environment. I believe in paying it forward, whether it is over a cup of tea or coffee for that matter, at the workstation or even by the copier. I'm always reaching out to the younger, junior colleagues and helping them achieve their fullest potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Tsuki. That was really interesting. Again, an interesting journey and very thought-provoking, your journey in particular. The fact that you realized the importance of project management and being a role that architects have become excluded from, sometimes through choice, sometimes through circumstances. So I really admire determination to retake that role. So very, very inspiring. Right, so we are coming to our last speaker is Maria. So Maria Wong, who is from Wong Design and Wow Architects. So over to you, Maria. Before I do though, I would like to remind all our attendees that they can put the questions to our remarkable women in the chat. So please make sure you include your name and where you're from. But please ask questions. I've got so many questions I'd love to ask our panel today. So I'm sure you feel the same. So over to you, Maria.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just thought as the 5th speaker in the group, and I'm really happy to go after these impressive professional architects that have preceded me. I think that I'm going to say that to start with, a lot of my career is well documented, and so I'm not really going to go through the journey, but rather going to share with you a bit of an espresso of where it has led me today. But I just wanted to say that if you would like to see a bit about my journey, there's a very interesting site called Architects Not Architecture that has done kind of a profile of my career and life rather than just my projects. And my projects are very comprehensively documented on our wow.sg website. So if you'd like to look at those, you can see whatever interests you. But what I would like to share with you now is a little bit more about what we're doing and what we have done in the recent past. And I think that the reason that I want to share it in this way is that COVID has been a huge wake-up call for us. Oh, sorry, pardon me. I'm not sure if I have shared my screen. I thought I had, but perhaps I have not.
You haven't shared it yet.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen right now. Okay.
Yes, we can see it now.
Yep. Okay, so the reason I wanted to share it with you this way, which is this kind of condensation of our career, is that COVID has really given us a sense of urgency, a realization that our passion for sustainability and for the environment, which have been with us from the very, very outset of our education, have not progressed as much as we had hoped over the course of our career. Our career is also 30 years. In fact, this month I celebrate the 40th anniversary of my graduation from high school, 30th anniversary of my graduation from Harvard University's Graduate School of Design, and the 20th anniversary of the founding of Wow Architects and Wong Design. So it's kind of a milestone year for me where I feel that I can really look back on this 30-year career as a professional and ask myself where it is really going to be going in the next 10 and 20 years of my practice. So as I said, the urgency that we have felt as a result of COVID, which has really shines a light on the problem, the seriousness of the environmental problem that we have created, is something that we need to step up our response to, and we need to ensure that what we do going forward is really far more committed and more assertive and more insistent on being sustainable in our work. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the regenerative design strategies, which is kind of the version 2.0 of our sustainable design strategies. Our firm's mission, and when I say us, I'm speaking of myself and my partner Wong who have practiced. We actually were in university together, graduate school. We founded the practice together, and we have been working together all this time, 37 years. We've known each other. So our practice and our mission is to create spaces of extraordinary sensory experience that are rooted in culture, memory, and place. And this is the idea that has been behind our work throughout our career, throughout the region where we work, which is really centered on sort of the Indian Ocean in a region all the way around, and in 20 countries or more. And culminating in this project, which you see here, which is our first really significant commission in Singapore for a hotel, which is being built near the Singapore Zoo in the Mandai Nature Reserve area, and is really a very, very important project for Singapore because it is working within a nature reserve and looking at how we can insist upon the conservation that we know is our highest priority, while actually implementing carefully implemented developments which are sensitive to their environment and are regenerative in nature and will continue to foster the development of the environment around them. We also realize over the course of our entire career that the key to the success of our firm, the things that we've achieved in our career, is really about collaboration. And it's really something that I've seen from each and every one of the presentations that preceded mine, was that collaboration is the cornerstone. We can't do anything on our own really throughout our whole career. All of those, large, complex, and interesting projects that we have worked on over the course of our career really require us to work collaboratively and to build relationships and to revisit the experiences, the people, and the strategies that have worked for us as we continue to develop new strategies. So the diagram on the left, which is centered on sustainability, is really our new way of documenting the approach for us to work in collaboration. And it's not merely the usual, group of CNS, M&E, and, QS, client, developer, architect, and designers, but it really also involves a lot of other stakeholders, the product development, finance, academia, the media. So much more involvement between different players is going to be key to the success of our projects in the future. So I think it's something that we also try to share with young architects, that it's important really to not be in a silo of architecture. The other thing is that our work really does integrate architecture, interior design, and landscape design. So we also need to kind of wear three hats. And to do this, I think it's all the more important that we be open to collaboration with completely different areas. Recently, in the case of this project, we worked with the Nature Society, we worked with zoologists from the university, we worked with specialists in water systems, and just a lot of different consultants that we hadn't had on project teams in the past. And it really gave us the opportunity to explore better, newer directions and to really take things a lot further than we have with other collaborative environments. In the projects that we have built, like the very well-known St. Regis Maldives, which you see on the left, we really want to work with clients even as we work as professionals. We want to help them develop the vision. So in the next few slides, what you'll be seeing is how in each of the projects that we've done, we've really worked with our clients in unconventional ways beyond the usual scope of the architect, like master planning feasibility. In this case, it was actually looking for an island in the Maldives, which took a few years after evaluating several different islands, different properties, different ecologies before the actual island was selected. We have recently been very involved in automation and computer production through manufacturing, like in the case of this house in Singapore, which has this perforated screen, which was actually a parametric design inspired by the trees that surround the house in the neighborhood. We're trying to really look into landscaping as a major feature in the development of hospitality. Landscape design traditionally has played a major role, but now landscape conservation comes on board as an equally important pillar. And actually the cultivation, this kind of gardens for the production of food as well as for guest experiences, for education of the staff and the guests on the site, have become a very valuable asset to our projects. Ecotourism master planning, looking at the whole horizon of where ecotourism is. And Singapore is a very interesting case where we have very leading edge tourism offerings, but this kind of ecotourism facility has never been developed here. In fact, the project that we're working on in Mandai is something which really doesn't exactly exist within a nature reserve, to have a large hotel that has been integrated into an existing landscape. So it is a challenging and a very exciting project. We look to develop projects that are ecologically sensitive. And we also feel that the way that the landscape is done to be sustainable, it's very important that that landscape be designed in such a way that it can continue to grow and develop and transform the project over time. We want to get better at strategic interventions, which means not having to clear sites and cut trees and build roads for heavy equipment, but actually to be able to insert projects like the pavilion that you see on the left that was inspired by a little pangolin into an existing forest without having to clear the forest in order to build it. And we also feel that industry awareness training is one of the cornerstones of how the hospitality industry going forward is going to be able to add value to guest experience. So we want to get involved in training the staff of the hotels, the team in the developer's office, all of the collaborators, and even the builders and the people who are on site managing the project. If all of them have an appreciation and a deep understanding of the sustainable objectives of the project, it will trickle down to the guest experience, and it will have a much more impactful resonance in the project itself. We feel that sustainability is an area which has hardly even begun to take place in the hospitality interiors. The vast majority of hotel interiors in urban areas, at least, are still shockingly unsustainable, and there's enormous innovation needed in this area. So again, the integration of landscape and the materials, the furniture, the manufacturing of products in the hospitality industry are huge areas of opportunity and growth that we see for the future. We also have experienced in the recent past how the need to retrofit and transform spaces, how suddenly the home becomes a workplace and it needs different kind of spatial configuration and different settings than it needed in the past. So we're looking into how to adapt existing architecture and existing real estate to meet current needs. We're looking into regenerating sustainable habitats, and we often study deeply the traditional environmental systems in societies when we develop, like in the case of this hotel in Ubud, which is going to be a botanical resort. And we're really learning from the communities around it about how they have practiced water management for centuries and for generations. And we're trying to understand how they do that and implement it in the project. These projects, these are some of the operators that we've worked with. So we've had the opportunity to work with many, many different hotel operators, but the common thread is that it's a community of people who collaborate and they move from one hotel group to another as these hotel organizations expand and explode and evolve and transform. But the people that we know in the community welcoming new members and moving from one organization to another is interesting. And the media has featured our work extensively, especially the sustainable projects that we've done in the past 5 years have been, extensively featured in the media. People are interested and they're very, very curious to know how it's done and how we can all learn from each other. And this is a project in China that has started and stopped. And so I'm going to end on this slide just to share with you that I think you have to have incredible tenacity and amazing patience and understand that for an architecture career, it actually does take 40 or 50 years for the whole career to play out. And you have to really, as Rita says, focus on your dreams and don't give up and have a goal that you focus on and keep going for it. For me, the priority is sustainability. It's about the environment. It's about architecture, interiors, and landscapes that promote a regenerative environment. And I'm very blessed and happy to be able to say that I practice this profession with the objective of achieving that. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. That was incredibly interesting. Again, what a fantastic panel we've got here today. So I'm going to have a look at the questions, and I'm hoping that the audience has been stimulated or be stimulated to ask some questions. We only have 15 minutes, so not a lot of time. In the meantime, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions on my own. I've got them written down, just bear with me. I would like to ask each one of you, how would you contribute your wisdom and expertise or ideas to empower other women? Because you're all very empowered, and you have very long journey where you build up your knowledge, you build up your confidence, which ties in with another question. So if I can ask that as well, did you have role models, or did you have adequate role models when you decided to become architects? As young women, both at university, who were your role models, if indeed you had any? So shall I ask, shall we start with Fiona, just in order of presentation, and then please feel free to contribute.
That would be good.
Don't wait for me to give you the chance.
Actually, Shaumyika and I have a thing that we do together. She's working on it more than I am these days, but we started a sort of a networking group in Singapore, which is perhaps tragically called Archi-Chicks, and I think a few are watching today. But we grab whoever we can find, recent graduates, people coming back from studying overseas, people arriving in town, and it's really just a group where we can get 5, 10, 15 separate tables, obviously, together to talk, and you know, it has great outcomes. Yes, we talk about work. Early iterations, we would have arguments about layering systems and AutoCAD and stuff. It's sort of got off that topic now. But if we're trying to find staff, that's the first place we look in that group. And what's been interesting recently is the change in emphasis in the young people that are coming into the group. I think I'm still fairly single-mindedly stuck in this kind of traditional practice way of thinking. I'm an architect and I do this. But the profession has expanded so much now, and people are coming out of university and they're looking at what an architectural career looks like, and they're looking at the other things that they can do with the skills they've learned that are still architectural and can bring that value and way of thinking to other things. But prop tech is a big feature. A lot of people are going into interior design, project management like Tsuki. So architecture is not just this kind of consultancy anymore. It is a way of thinking and a way of doing things that's got a much bigger scope.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Actually, it's very interesting what you just said, that being an architect is no longer the traditional role. A lot what is under the sort of architect hat encompass fields that used to be sort of alien to us in the past. And I have to say, after today's presentation, I think a lot of it is thanks to people like you. I would say people because I think women, as women, is clearly this is the topic of today, it's women in architecture. But you stand out exceptionally as architects and not necessarily gender-binded female architect, if that makes sense. So, and yes, thank you.
I would say that when it comes to role models, I think probably about 90% of my professors were male. So I think visibility was not, there weren't a lot of women, female architects that were visible to me when I was studying. There was a lot of talk about Zaha at that time, which was helpful, but it was, it was just there wasn't enough visibility, and I think that's improved a lot. I think there's a lot more talk about female architects, and we're just seeing more faces. So I think that's quite helpful. But I also feel that some of my role models were in my own family. So they weren't all necessarily architects, but just women in my family. And in addition to that, I think there have been a lot of artists who are role models to me, people like Annie Albers, and Shirin Nashat, who's actually a contemporary. So yeah, I think sometimes you find role models in different areas that are not necessarily exactly what you're doing, not exactly in your sector, but just sort of around you, because you have to look around, I guess. But yeah, I think in terms of empowering women, young women, I think younger women, I think, I think what's quite important is trying to, if you can, find out what you want to do early, because it takes a long time. It's a very long game. Yeah. So if you can figure out what you want to do early, that helps. But also, I think if you understand that sometimes what makes you feel fulfilled is not going to pay the bills, and you may have to separate the two and do them at the same time. So I think that's, especially when you're starting out, if you're starting out your own practice, or if you're trying to do some work independently, I think that can be helpful. But even if you're working for a practice, perhaps you're learning everything you need to learn, but you need something else to keep you fulfilled. And you might have to combine the two. And hopefully they become one eventually.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Shaumyika. We have got a question, actually, before I hand over to the rest of the panel that may want to contribute to this. We've got a question. It's a little bit of a statement, and it's from Razvan. Danish architect Dorte Mandrup is quoted saying, "I am not a female architect, I am an architect." Is the term architect non-gender yet in our architectural community in Singapore? How important is language in that conversation, i.e. unconscious bias of using the terms fraternity or lady architect, both quite normative in our context? I have to say that whilst I do admire Dorte Mandrup, and I believe that what she says is absolutely true, we shouldn't see gender, like we shouldn't see ethnicity. We shouldn't see any difference in talent. We are a long way away still to be on the same level playing field with our male counterparts. So, I would read that as an aspiration for a lot of our colleagues who often set up their own practices as a consequence of choosing to become mothers, of needing more flexibility in their working life, or simply because they just want a better balance between work and life. So there is still a lot of ground to be covered, and I think initiatives like this do help, ignoring the fact that there are a lot of stumbling blocks that may not be perceived by everybody and may not be in everybody's experience, but when you widen your vision, you can see that we're still at a point where it is not exactly the same. So I would say that we want to get to the point where we can all say, like Dorte Mandrup, I am not a female architect, I am an architect. So this is what we're working towards. So thank you for that question, and please feel free to add to that. Would you like to add to this conversation? I mean, answer this question, or maybe the previous one?
Yeah. Sure.
Rita.
Rita here. Yeah, I was just about to share that actually, unlike what was shared, when I become an architect, that I don't really see gender as an issue. All right, and notwithstanding the fact that we come from a very patriarchal kind of a society, maybe the way it come across, gender never became a feature that I kind of accustomed to. Maybe perhaps I was very much a tomboy when I was growing up. Yeah, I climb trees and I catch spiders. but the thing, jokes aside, but I guess the fact that we need to work harder because especially when you are, you settle down, you have kids, it's going to be a bit tough. And but then in Singapore, I think because women here, I think generally women are multitasker. We are very good at multitasking. We can go for a meeting and then you can go to the grocery and then pick up your grocery stuff along the way, things like that. But that being said, it didn't occur to me that that women had a hard time because until a couple of years back when I was at AIA conference, because I didn't have to go through that difficult period because I probably got supportive bosses. But when I heard that, actually, if you are in a position to be a liver for the rest who may be having a bit difficult time, then perhaps that could be something that the women architects could do as women bosses. So really in Singapore, I don't think I don't know whether our friends in Singapore had that similar experience, but gender never became an issue for all of us here.
Well, I'd like to add to that, Rita, if I may.
Yes,
yes,
please, Maria.
For the first 20 years of my career, professionally, I felt very strongly that gender was not a barrier. And because I managed to pursue my career, get registered as an architect in a country that I wasn't even a citizen of, I had every opportunity given to me to achieve what I needed to achieve. However, in the past 10 years, I have seen increasingly a bigger and bigger obstacle and greater barriers. And I'm not sure if they're about the profession, but they're about society as a whole. And that patriarchy has really put up some incredibly strong glass ceilings all around women at every level of their career. So I think that there's no denying that the broader problem of gender equality is absolutely pervasive, universally, but it's not that it's particularly bad in architecture. I think architecture is more or less okay. When I was a student, 50% of the architects were women. However, I was at a SIA convention 5 years ago where they showed the statistics in which they said, NUS has 50% women graduates, and by the time they're 30 years old, the vast majority of these women are not practicing architecture. Now, actually, probably by the time they're 50, the vast majority of the men aren't practicing architecture either, because we all go in different paths, whether it's project management, finance, the whole entire industry depends on people trained in architecture to actually fill so many important roles, which I think is wonderful that, we should all be encouraged much earlier on. In fact, I'll tell you a bit about my mentors. My first mentor was a man, a Greek architect who was from the UK. And he really told us from the very outset, he said, look, out of 100 architecture students, only 5 will go on to be great designers. The other 95 are going to really fill very, very important roles in the industry. Okay, you're going to be very important in what you do, whatever you choose to do. So pursue your interest. If you want to sell carpets or lighting, or you want to be an engineer, you want to be a quantity surveyor, go do whatever interests you because we need you. Okay, but out of the 5 who are talented in practice architecture, only about 1% are really going to go on to have really accomplished careers. So the important thing always to me is, what about the other 95%? Then we should be helping 95% of the profession to really achieve something very important, because that 5% will probably take care of themselves. They're probably going to be okay either way. But I want to mention one other role model, and that is Denise Scott-Brown, who, when I was at the Harvard Graduate School of Design, taught me my first semester of design, and actually amazing, almost like a guru, or just taught me so many important life lessons. Again, she had a very complex, difficult international career. And again, I'm looking at all 5 of us. I don't think any of us have had it easy. We've had very, very complex and very important decisions made at every step of the way in our career. And our careers are definitely very different from those of men. So if you listen to 100 other presentations of women, I think it'd be so fascinating to hear these stories of these journeys, because they are different somehow. It's not about equality, it's about difference. And again, celebrate the difference, right? Celebrate your difference. I think that's really good advice.
Thank you, Maria. Just on statistics, given that we are here on the RIBA chapter chats. According to the latest statistics of the RIBA, whilst we got 50-50 school entrance, year one of architectural degree, the actual chartered members statistic is of 23% women.
Now there you go.
So
in a few years,
and that is getting better, because the younger generation are fighting and sustaining their career, but we still got a long way to go to have that 50-50, the 50-50 splits in the profession as we have got.
I feel that it's because our profession is not sustainable in itself. The career is not a sustainable career. So most women, when they come to that stage of life where they're going to raise 2 or 3 children at the same time, it's really very difficult to continue. I'm sure all of us didn't stop working and all that, but it's tough. And when you have to look after parents and you have, it's somehow, I feel that it's become a lot more difficult. And I know very few women in the younger cohort who actually consistently stay on as architects right through. At some point, people, do other things. So I think we need to focus on how we can make it a more sustainable career for people in the future.
Exactly. I totally agree. Yeah. And Tsuki, would you like to add something in your experience?
Yeah, since the beginning of my career in architecture, I have been quite very fortunate to have worked with several strong female leaders. In fact, when I was in South Wales, they have been my role models. They're very supportive, always give me a lot of professional support, and the workplace is always fun. We don't have problem with the gender, and we kind of having a 50-50 male and female architects in the studio. That is a fun time. So like going to the architecture school, I always think that it's only the beginning, and the rest is just up to you where you want to be. So being architect is just, you need to be good in your craft, but we need to constantly rethink, review, and innovate what is important, because the world is very fast evolving and changing. So we have to constantly change to embrace the challenge. So this is important. So as a woman, we sometimes forget that we are always the biggest critic, but we also our biggest cheerleaders. So we can actually become one another's cheerleaders, and then we celebrate our wins, regardless it's big or small. That is something that we can do. So it's compared to 20 years ago, there has been a shift in the professions. So we actually now seeing many women in architecture school. So they're reading and hearing about other fellow females, movers and shakers in our industry. This is something we should celebrate. So we have the unique qualities. It sets us apart. So instead of conforming to certain beliefs, we should play to our strengths and offer different perspective, and allowing us to rise above the preconceived notions of a female architect. So this is I think there are many initiatives calling for gender equality within the industry, but however, the narrative may inadvertently amplify the concept of putting women into certain boxes and categories. So I think that recognizing an individual's ability is purely based on merit and his or her capabilities to inspire change. So I think this is more important. So I try not to emphasize the gender differences. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think I agree with you. We need to be our own, our colleagues and our fellow architects' biggest cheerleader, and we need to push for fundamental changes. When you see when you see that in important forums there are very few women representatives of the profession, but it's a societal, as Maria said, it's a societal shift that we need. It's not just in our profession, but we need to speak out, because unfortunately the argument that is not about gender. It is about being who is the best person, and you see a whole panel of men, in fundamental, in inspiring thing. It's almost the assumption that aren't there any good enough women that could be there. So we have to be very careful. Coincidentally, the best are just men. So we have to keep that conversation going. And I think initiatives like this, connecting us. I'm hoping that I will connect with you on LinkedIn. I hope we'll stay in touch. And I think the strength is in numbers. The more of us pick up, the more of us become visible, and not just in our circle. I think the more we will be able to influence society and not just the architecture profession. So thank you so much. We're 5 minutes over time. I could stay here and talk to you all day. It's been such an incredible experience today. I've learned so much. So thank you. You never end learning. So I hope to see you all very soon. Thank you again to Fiona. I'll try to go on the screen. So Fiona, Shaumyika, Rita, Tsuki, and Maria. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you.
I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.